Hey guys, good night, good day, good afternoon. I don't know what time that is for you guys. Let me just very quickly here in the chat. Um, so about the chat, let me just give you the heads up here. The chat for me is very hard to keep track on it. Normally, like it's kind of like minimized on the corner there. So if you guys, like, if any of you don't have a microphone, to ask me questions and stuff, if someone can be so kind of just like doing the favor, someone with a microphone, and just like asking the question for someone else, that would be great because I have my focus right here in the monitor. I'm going to be doing a lot of work, so it's very hard for me like to track both. But yeah, so if you guys can help me with the chat, that would be great. So it's like I can keep just like working and we go from there. So it's good to see different faces today. I see that some people actually fell asleep yesterday, but but today seems like everybody's here. And so I don't know if you had the chance to catch up with the video yesterday to look at the stuff we talked about. It was mostly like just an introduction. So not a lot of like super important things other than I guess the calculations we did it's like to find out what was the optimal number of UDIMs, right? So I think that was the very useful part of the whole thing yesterday. And today, obviously, we're going to be approaching likeness. I'm going to start doing some sculpting here. And then let me just show you this again. Let's see if it's loading now. Yeah, and this is the address here, but it seems like Artstation, for whatever reason, is in maintenance right now. But this address here is the one I pointed you guys yesterday. It has that awesome article about likeness that was posted. So there are a couple of things when it comes to likeness in my personal view. So for example, like this is my subject for this class. So I'm going to be sculpting Ray Harryhausen, which is, inspired me greatly with all this stop motion he did back in the day with Jason the Argonauts. And so the first thing I try to do, I mean, like I don't have any super cool pictures of those guys ever, right? Like everything I find is in the internet. And I try to, when I do the search, I look for like a higher resolution stuff. So maybe like you can find like 2K images and stuff, but not much higher than that. There are a couple of websites, especially the ones that sell you the photographs of celebrities and things like that. You can get like some Getty images. If you go there, there's this Alamy, and then yeah, like you can find pictures in those types of websites. And of course, if you're sculpting a celebrity, a good tip in that article was actually to look for mugshots, right? Like you look for police record of those guys because they're always in trouble, and then you can get like side and front view. So that's a great way to go. And I think like the best thing you can do when it comes to likeness, if you want to study something on the side, I would say like study photography. It's a great thing, like either like for your lighting is going to help you with the lightnings and everything, lighting skills, right? And also to be able to guess better, it's like the type of lenses those photographers are using for those for those shots when you see them online. I don't know exactly how much it's like the lenses are, but how wide they are or not, but I normally take a guess, and also the setting can give you a little bit of a clue of what's going on. Sometimes if it's like a red carpet and stuff like that, sometimes the photographers, they're not like on them, right? They have to be at a certain distance because they don't want to be interrupting anyone passing or anything like that. So they stay from a distance, and normally they're going to use like, I don't know, they can use like a zoom lens, right? Like a 70-200, for example, or something like that, and just stay like on the sideways, right? And just like photograph those guys. So if you get a lens like that from a distance, let's say someone is using like 150 to reach the person's face, right? You're gonna get obviously a more flat kind of picture. And then if it's something more candid like this, like in a studio,
Sorry.
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 Hello.
It's just because people are asking if you're sharing screen because we are seeing you, but not your.
Oh, no, not yet. Thank you, guys. Yeah, that's a bad habit. Thank you. So
You're welcome, buddy.
so that's the thing. I'm talking about. Imagine this, right? So so those are some pictures I got from the internet. You know, so I was talking about like this one, for example. It seems like a little bit more flat picture, right? There's kind of like a few rules that you know, it's like people use when they photograph in the studio, which are, you know, it's like the types of lenses they're gonna use. For example, like if it's just like the face, if it's just the face, they're gonna use something to make like a better, you know, proportionally better picture. You're gonna be probably like a 100 to 100 and even 200. You know, it's like if it's just like a close up of the face, I would say 100 would be pretty good, and then 135 is another lens. But if you go like a head and shoulders like this, it's more likely like a 85. It's a studio picture, right? Which is not the case in here. So 85, and then, you know, it's like if you go all the way to the waist, probably gonna be 50 millimeters. You know, it's like full body maybe 35, 50. So it varies, you know. But as you get closer and closer to the face, it basically like you get like higher numbers. I have a macro lens that's 100 millimeters, and it works great for macro, but also great for portraits like that. So in this case here is probably someone a little bit from a distance taking a candid portrait. It's not like a studio, as you can tell. So I would consider this one slightly flat, right? I can see both ears almost completely in there. So it's a little bit more of a flat lens. I don't have many examples of him right here, but I have a few. Let's see if I can find one that looks a little bit less. Let's see, this one maybe not so much. I think I have very few pictures here. Yeah, this one here doesn't look too wide, you know. It's like you can see, actually, yeah, I would say it's hard to guess, but like if it's a cut like this, you never know if it was cropped or anything like that. But if it was a shot like that, I would say like probably a 85 or something like that to get something. I still can see a little bit of the ear. It's kind of like his, you know, twisting his head a little bit. So it's all like it's about likeness to me is about the guess game, you know. It's we are not using scans in here, and my intention is to always like try to assemble a puzzle, you know. So if I find all those pictures online, I try to gather like as much information as I can, and then sometimes I find one picture that's, for example, like from a different angle, like slightly from the top or something like that, and that solves a little piece of the puzzle for me, you know. So let me just make sure that everybody's muted. And so it solves a piece of the puzzle. So to me, this is it's part of the learning experience when it comes to likeness. You know, when it comes to proportions, a couple of things to observe. I would always start with the size of the eyes, right? Eyes and size of the eyes, the iris in comparison to the eyes, and the distance between the pupils. This gives a clue on how to start like building something that's convincing when it comes to eyes, right? So if you go to Wikipedia, for example, you have this topic here, papillary distance, right? The pupils distance, and that's the measurements they use, and they have averages here for, you know, it's like for female and male, and the 50 percentile is about like 62 millimeters, so it's like 6.2 centimeters between eyes, right? So if you average the two of them, it's about 6.3 centimeters. And then when it comes like to the eye size itself, so let's look at this little scene here. So this eyeball here comes from my own model, probably like from Dick Smith or something like that. So just as an example here. So it seems like it's slightly bigger than what I would expect here. It's about like 2.6 centimeters. Let's look for example, like let's do another search here. Average eyeball, size of eyeball. Okay, human size. So it's about like 24.2, and then 23 by 7. So we can round it to about 24. So 24 would be kind of like the average, right? Like it says here like between 21 and then 27 millimeters, so 2.1 centimeters to 2.7 centimeters. So my eye seems like it's a little bit bigger than the average, but still within the range. So let's consider this one is okay. So it's kind of like in the higher end of it, right? So like 2.66. So if you have one eye like that, And then let's create another one here, another measurement. That would be the distance between the pupils if you want to do something like that. Let's see. So if I have that little guy in there so we can see it, let's create another measure tool here. And that one we're going to click in here and then around here. And let's get to about 6.3, right? So 6.3 is around there, close enough. So let's get this one back, and then let's select everything. It's in the center. Seems like it would be in the center. Let's see if it's in the center. So let's group it, and then Control D, duplicate, and then let's scale it this way. Let's see what's the distance we have in here. So that's kind of distance in there. So I'm gonna have to bring this one back a little bit. I just wanna make sure you have like the right proportion for it. So from here, let me just bring this one down a little bit. Let's see, this one and this one, let's bring them. Oops. Oh, I think I grouped the whole thing. I grouped the yeah, let's just group this guys here and leave the rest alone. So let's just do this. Let's get my outliner. It's easier to see what's going on here. So I think I grouped the locator as well. So let's unparent that one. And then if I have anything here, same. Okay, so this guy here, and then my locators, let's just bring everything up. Just the locators, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Let's bring it up around here. And that's that guy here, don't need it anymore. So 6.2, this guy here. Oh, let's get the eyeball, and the center. It's a little messy here right now, but we're gonna get there. Oh, it has a double transformation, great. Okay, so center, let's do it again. It's not center, Maya. Oh, it's okay. I use Maya for about 20 years only, so I don't know how to work with this thing, you know. So there is that. Let me just get rid of everything here. Get this and this. Let's group again. Let's see if that one works now. Center. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so 6.2, and so we don't need this guy here. Let's get rid of it, and then this is the line we're gonna follow. So basically from here, let's get a little closer, and then let's get this guy grouped and then center. So let's get about that. Let's see around here. So that would be the center. So we see like, this would be like an average, right? Like we have like 2.6, and then normally the iris size, it's about half of that. So if you look at here again, let's go do a little search, and let's say average size of iris. So it says here between 2 and 4 millimeters in diameter, right? So let's see, like a light, there's more information here. Let's see. In the light so that's the pupil size. So that's not what you want. That's the iris size. So like iris. Let's see, iris. Okay, so that's it. So about like 25.4 millimeters in diameter. And then, so that's basically like, okay, 2.55. So in relation to what we have in here, oh, that's not correct. Let's see. I'm a mess today. Human eyeball. So that's the eyeball. Let's see the iris. Oh, the iris is here. So 10.2 and 13. So basically, like you can consider like half of it, right? So this is the high end again. So it's like 13. So it's going to be pretty much half of what we have right now. So so consider that, you know, it's like the iris in here. If I measure it again, so measure tools, distance, and then if I just do like roughly right here, 10 and 10, something around here. So I got the 1.3 in there, so it's a little bit higher, right? But it's still in the range. So, you know, that's about it. So when you're building your eyeball, you have to make sure that you have the iris at around like half of the full length of it, you know, from the front view. And then you have this distance in here. And obviously, there's a confusion when it comes like to what's the distance between the eyeballs, right? So we have like the two eyes, and you should be fitting a third eye in the middle. But you see, there's a gap in between them. It's not like a full eye in the middle, because you know, it's like this average that we say, like, okay, it's a distance of 3 eyes. We are considering actually the corners of the eye, right? So if you're doing reading any anatomy book, you're going to be considering the corners, like right here and right there. Probably like mine here is super close together, so it's not going to be that, right? So if you're sculpting this model, which we're going to be doing soon, you're going to have something that's a little bit more, you know, probably like a little bigger like that. So if you consider those corners in here, then you're going to have a third eye in the middle. But if you consider the size of the eyeball, you're going to have a gap in between them, right? So that's basically like starting with this. I think it's easier to actually build things around when you have like the measurements. Obviously, we're going to be sculpting a very free form right now, and then we're going to check those proportions later on. But they're very important, you know, it's like make sure that we have everything set to go. Another thing that I do normally is to create a little bit of a rotation, right, for the eyes. If you have the eyes pointing like 90 degrees, like facing forward like that, it's very likely that your character is going to look cross-eyed, you know, it's going to look cross-eyed, because there is a, you know, it's like your eyes, they kind of like the same way when you look at your hand, from up close, you're going to get like crossed eye, and you're going to have a conversion. You have like the same effect going outward. So if you want to make your character looking like it's wondering about something, you know, it's like it's a human looking for to the horizon or something, or just wondering about life, right? To look like it's someone who actually thinks about something. Then you're probably going to want to basically rotate this outwards. So if I have my eyes in here, I probably would rotate, let's see, from the top, probably around like 2 to 3 degrees, something like that in each side. So I would rotate like both of them. Obviously, we're not going to be doing this right now, but when you start putting our character together, that's basically what we're going to be doing. You know, it's like about 2 to 3 degrees. So it looks always more natural, right? Like when you do like that. Let's see if Artstation is still working. Okay, now it's going to load. So again, like just refer to this article here from Darren. He was my student in the previous class, but I have nothing to do with this. He did this before the class actually, and it's a great article. He talks about everything. I spoke a little bit about it yesterday, but just go through it and read on, because it has a lot of good information, and Darren is great at likeness. But the way I approach likeness, like I said, it's about exercising my eyes, right? So I'm not going to use like a blueprints or scans or anything like that. I'm going to basically try to eyeball a lot of the work. And then later on, I might do this, you know, it's like to double check things. If proportions are fairly in the ballpark, I'm going to just make my interface transparent like that, which is great in ZBrush, right? It's a nice little feature you have. So for example, like if you have something like this, right? You can easily in ZBrush later on, you know, when you're just starting to double check things, you can actually make the interface transparent and then check things out, you know, just like move around like that. You're going to start rotating, trying to find a similar, you know, position and everything. So, you know, very quickly, just to check proportions, for example. And by proportions, I mean the distance between eyes and the base of the nose, like this triangle here is important. The distance, of course, like the how wide is the mouth, right? And then, of course, this is all this stuff like the inside of the architectural part of the face. But then when it comes to the frame of the face, which is basically everything else, like you're going to have your masseter in there, you know, it's like your zygomatic bone, temporalis and everything. And that's going to form like the frame of the face. And that's going to add a second layer of difficulty. I have like a hard time sometimes to actually nail the 3/4 because of this whole area right here with the forehead. A couple of like traps that I find like more often are, for example, like I see lots of attempts of likeness out there that people get wrong. For example, this this little arch in here, you know, it's like this corner here of the nose in relation to the corner of the mouth in relation to the eyes themselves, right? It's almost like sometimes people get this too shallow. So for example, it looks like this, right? Looks like this from profile. Sometimes, I mean, like you look from the front and it works great. You look like that, I was like, oh yeah, the model is, whoa, it doesn't work, right? And then same with this relationship here, which is basically like the zygomatic in relationship to the eyebrow in here. Yeah, even here, I think like this is too big, right? Like I would have to shave this one a little bit. But again, this model is not like a, you know, it's like a perfect model anyway. But this relationship is important, you know, it's like to get this and this part here in a certain line that actually makes sense, right? So making sure that, for example, like the orbital bone in here and everything around it, you're gonna feel this structure in the corner right here, right? Another common mistake is to actually either make it too shallow. So this is basically, it goes too forward like that, right? And then it gets too flat, or make it too deep. So some people get like very deep like that. And then you look from the side and you get that huge gap in there, right? It's something like that. Of course, I'm exaggerating, but you know, something like that. Like those types of, those places are the ones I find like the most, you know, challenging to nail when it comes like to the relationships, you know. Everything is about like breaking down like little areas, right? Like first you're going to start with the eyes in relation to the nose, and then, you know, it's like the nose in relation to the mouth and chin, and then everything how they work as a V here or as a Y, and you know, try to use like triangles and things like that to try to map those proportions. Everything starts with proportion, and then one thing that really bothers me is when someone actually starts something with a scan, but pretends it didn't do much. You know, it's like, oh, I did like a photo scan here. I have this app on my phone, and then I recreated my face in 3D, so I have a 3D model. But it didn't do much. I mean, like you can see, it's very dirty, and I just have to clean it up. You know, it's like it's like all the work is cleaning up, but I mean, I didn't get a lot out of it. And I call it bullshit because like the most important part is to get the proportions correctly, right? Like is to get like for likeness is to get the distance correct, right? So like the distance between eyes and nose and mouth and everything. And if the scan is dirty, but you have those proportions in there, those distance already in there, that's half of the trouble already, you know? So it's not like just cleaning up. You got a lot done for you, you know? So in this case here, we're gonna be doing like the, you know, it's like the hard way, because we wanna push our eyes to learn how to observe and basically like see those relationships and how they interact with each other. I'm not going to be, for example, like preaching to always do this, because, you know, it's like even traditional artists, they use a lot of like, you know, they have calipers, they measure things constantly between like, you know, it's like the real person and the clay model and everything. You know, it's like if you have like practical VFX, practical special effects guys, they're going to use live casts, right, for everything, and they're going to build everything on top of live casts. If we are working with 3D in digital doubles, they're going to use like a light stage model with a scan and everything. So, I mean, people will use everything they have at their disposal to be able to capture things, right? But this is, I think, like I'm going to reserve this for my professional work at ILM. You know, it's like so I have access to all those tools and everything. But since this is my own trip of, you know, it's like trying to push myself as an artist, so I'm going to try to eyeball most of the stuff like I normally do. And then later on, we're going to just do some, you know, comparison and see what we can fix. So I'm going to start with a few references in here. I'm going to do some sculpting. I'm going to start with this guy here as a front view for me. So I'm going to put on the side here because I don't want to take too much space in the monitor. And I'm going to use this other one here. Let's see. This one, not this one, this guy here. So this is going to be my 3/4. And I like this one because although it's very low resolution, it's so blurry. It's still, it has a nice angle, you know. I can see a little bit of the under the neck, right? So I can see that. His face like has a lot of marks and everything. It's going to be challenging to paint. You know, it's like has some moles and things like that. Maybe like he had some, I don't know if he had some skin cancer actually. I don't know, I don't remember what was the cause of his death, but I wouldn't be surprised because he has a lot going on in his face. And then I'm gonna get to the side view, which is this one here. So I'm gonna be using like 3/4 side view and then the front. And the way I approach this, I mentioned this yesterday, I'm not a traditional artist, I'm a digital artist. And as a digital artist, we actually have access to this amazing thing, which is you can actually go back and forth in resolution, right? And just tweak things at different times. We don't need to actually start with the primary forms completely locked. It's important to have very strong primary forms, but you can actually keep working on them, right? One thing I noticed with this model here that I gave to you guys, I just tried this one, and of course, this is not ideal, but what I tried to do with it, I actually tried to run this smart symmetry here, and I noticed that's actually not creating a perfect symmetry. It's actually messing up stuff like that. And then I noticed that if I try to select like without the symmetry, and I just do this, and I try to use the resymmetry, it gives me a message saying that it's not completely symmetrical. So if you guys want to solve the problem, I mean, like this model is just a temporary model that can be useful for you guys because it has UVs and everything. But at this point here, if I want to make sure that it's completely symmetrical, which is at this point here, I mean, like it's optional for you guys to do because when I start the likeness, sometimes I start with a sphere or a cube, or sometimes like with anything, I can just like use the sculptures mode. So I'm not going to worry too much about that topology. But if you guys want to use this model later on for your topology and for the HD geometry work, then I would encourage you guys to do this. So basically, I select half of the face and I just like make everything hidden. And I'm gonna go to my geometry. I'm gonna just delete higher geometry, and then I'm gonna delete hidden, and I'm gonna just do like a mirror and weld. And now this should be actually a perfectly symmetrical model if everything went correct. Actually, I have a seam in there. So let me just undo it here. You can pull, you can force things a little bit like that. Just make sure. Or even move the entire thing, you know, it's like maybe a tiny little bit in. And just mirror and weld. And that should be like a perfect model. So just as a test here, I'm gonna just pull in here. Let's see if it generates the average for us. Under deformation, and then let's go to smart symmetry. Yeah, this one is working. But again, this is just optional for later on. For in this case here, you can go, you know, so I can just use whatever you want to use. So we're gonna start with some move topological brush, just to be able to close his mouth a little bit. I think I'm gonna go for this smile again. I'm actually enjoying doing smile now that I finally have teeth model. And I can just modify and just plug it in there. All my models are all sad before, but now they're gonna be always smiling. So I'm gonna start with that. Let's get the 3/4 closer to me. And just move it around here. So I'm gonna start by doing that. And okay, so very quickly here, let me just move to a similar position. I see my reference in there. And I'm gonna start by closing. Oh, another thing to do, under your draw, you have like this new camera from ZBrush, right? That's supposed to be pretty precise, but sometimes it gives you some interesting results, like 18 at 24 now, it doesn't make any difference between the two, see? 28 is working, 35, 50, but I'm pretty sure that's not like completely accurate. In the previous model, when I sculpted Stan Wisdom, I had to actually turn it off at some point because I was not trusting what I was saying, what I was seeing here. So I'm gonna start with the 85 since I'm so close, and my reference in there is a little bit like that. So very roughly here, I'm gonna start blocking some of the forms. I'm gonna start with this smile in here. And again, like if you're starting with a cube or a sphere, it's normally more ideal because you're not gonna get any contamination from this model here, right? But to save some time, I'm gonna start with this model and I'm just gonna modify it. So the first thing to notice is if you're modeling like someone smiling, you're gonna get like this entire area of the muzzle is gonna be pretty flat against the teeth, right? You're gonna lose volume in there because basically like you're gonna be pulling backwards like that. And then everything here is gonna be compressing against the arc of the teeth, right? The upper teeth. So I'm gonna start with that. And I'm just gonna turn on some teeth here so we can actually see what's going on. I can even like do a little tweaking the teeth. So upper teeth. Oh, Jesus. So I'm gonna be tweaking his lips, but probably the teeth's gonna have to come down slightly. Go up, and then I'm gonna start pulling some stuff here. When it comes to the tools I use, like for modifying stuff and to sculpt like the base meshes, I use a lot of move tool, as you can tell, like the topological one I use. Only for the lower resolution stuff. If I was using like a higher res mesh, I would be using like probably some other move brush, because the topological one, sometimes you get some artifacts if it's like too high res. But for this one here, it works fine. So I'm gonna just be building some volumes here. Just with the move brush, like by pressing Alt, of course, you just pull towards the normals. So that should be fairly okay to understand. Actually, I'm gonna put this guy on the side right here so you can actually see what I'm doing. It's gonna be a little smaller, but at least you can see it. So I have that guy right there. It's gonna be a little bit of work to get it. And then first I'm gonna get some of the main stuff like blocked in here, and then we're gonna start moving towards the clay buildup. The clay buildup is actually my favorite thing to get all those forms in place. So I'm gonna get some of that. See, like the corner of the mouth in here, it's gonna have to be deeper because we need to start creating the nasolabial fold. So you see, like the topology in here, it might not be ideal, but it's going to be enough for us to do some work. So I'm going to start with that. And my go-to brush here when I want to carve some stuff is actually, let me just subdivide one time. It's actually not the DEM standard, but the regular default standard brush. So I'm going to use the standard brush, and I'm going to click this alpha, and I'm going to switch to alpha 39. And obviously, you can save this later. I normally keep it unsaved so I can actually do it every time because I hate myself. So I normally create a point in here. The way that ZBrush works, let me go back here. So standard, I'm going to go to alpha 39. That's the one I pick normally. And then under alpha, you're going to see there is a modifier tab in here. So I'm going to maximize it. And then under here, you're going to see there's this little curve. And by default, it looks straight like that. So if you click any point and you pull it, now you create a point. Imagine that you're looking at your pen, and the tip of the pen is actually pointing up. So that's basically like the sharp point that we're creating here to start carving, right? So I made a point like that. If it's too sharp, sometimes you get like in trouble. It doesn't do what you want. But something around here should be good, like visually. And then under stroke, you can go to lazy mouse, and by default from 0.25, I'm gonna make this like 1/10 of that, so 0.02. And the reason is this. So if I have a 0.02, you get something like this. It's a very fluid cut, right? But if I have that at 0.25, you're gonna get dots. You start getting dots, especially if you have like a higher resolution, then it's gonna get lots of dots. So this one actually adds more steps. So let's do that. And then let's switch back here, and let's just mark some of those forms. Some people prefer to actually mark things with the poly paint, right? You're free to do it. I believe like most of us here are modelers with experience already. Lots of professionals in here, you know, it's like I'm at risk of making something completely dumb here, you know, it's like I'm being judged by you guys. Let's just get the move brush here again. And I'm going to start actually digging this a little deeper. I'm going to start observing how deep is the arc of his teeth right here, right? So this is an important one because when you look from the bottom, you're going to have a nice curvature in there. Sometimes people get too flat, right? So I'm going to have to make sure that that's not too flat. It actually has a nice little curvature to it. I'm going to make it more flat in here. Not flat, but I mean a little bit more. And then for intensity of my smooth, I normally use something around like 30. I never go like full 100% because that really messes up things. And then let's get back to my standard. That's the thing, you know, if I have on the side, my menu in here is going to be hidden partially, so it's going to be a little tricky. Although I can always use like a standard and try to find in here. I'd rather have it at the top so it's easier for me to see. But let's keep going here. So what did I pick in here, man? Standard. Okay. Let's get some of those areas marked, not precisely, but just like so I can see the volumes. So I'm gonna mark this very specific things, you know, some of the main wrinkles in here. So I'm gonna get some of them in place, and then I'm gonna start sculpting from that point on. But I need to find like landmarks, things that they can actually guide me. So something like that. And then for the cheeks in here, I'm gonna, for example, like his zygomatic here is a little bit higher, he's smiling. So I have this little ball in here. I can actually mark very slightly. And he's gonna have a squint, similar angle like that. And then the eye bags are gonna come a little bit lower. So it's not like I'm sculpting here the primary forms, because the primary forms are already kinda in that model, right? I'm gonna go straight for it's a mix between primary and secondary forms at the same time that I normally work with. Unless I'm starting like really from a cube or something like that, which I did for a couple of those models, but not in this case here. This entire class, I think, like every single one, I'm gonna start with a base mesh to save us some time. Bring this up. It gets very messy at the beginning, and then things start like falling into place, you know, slowly. So I'm gonna build some of the forming here. He has a very interesting lower lip. I'm gonna start building some form in there. Let's get this area here too. Let's get some more volume built. Then here, his chin. And build up some of his neck. Oops. So hard to work with the partial interface like that because the menus kind of pop out of place. Let's build some more of his nose in here. This little bump. Just bring it out slightly. And when it comes like to the clay buildup I'm going to be using soon, it's I try to go in steps. They are actually very, very small steps. So you see, like with the move brush, I'm doing like very broad modifications, right? I'm not shy about like just pulling stuff all the way. But then when it comes to the clay buildup, I try to be careful with it because I build things in thin layers, you know. So like all the secondary forms are built like in thin layers, not like really exaggerating or anything like that. So let's start doing some work with the clay buildup so you can see it. So from here, let me just block. Oh, for the clay buildup, I use intensity of like 2 or 3. It's very, very thin. So let's keep it 2 for now. Just gonna, you know, build up some of that. This is gonna be an interesting challenge right here because I'm gonna have to fold, you know, create this entire fold here over his eyelid, right? Because the eyelid's there. And I wanna just define a little bit more. And later on, we're gonna actually double check the eyelids, especially the top one, against the eyeball. And we have to basically create a nice offset. It has to be this curvature, this wrinkle in here has to be deep enough so you can feel it's actually wrapping around the eyeball, right? Like, so you basically like you define a thickness for the eyelid, and then you create that offset. It has to be consistent all the way across. So we're gonna have to make this much, much deeper later on. But for now, I'm just gonna add some depth in there. So I can actually start building some of this gigantic folding here. And the way that this fold happens normally, I sculpted like so many old people, right? Like it normally like it has this interesting shape that goes like this. So you basically like you pull towards the middle right here, and then it starts forming from here and then covering things up. So I'm gonna start like building it like that very roughly. And as you start like spinning and going like towards the bottom like that, this is going to end up like being very close together with the eyelids, because it's a thin kind of structure in there, like the skin gets thin. So this is going to start getting closer and closer to the lid itself. But again, we don't have the eyeball here, just double check. I actually have in there, but I'm not going to be using it just now. I'm just going to really roughly get those forms in place. So let me get this. I'm going to lower a little bit more. And, you know, I don't care too much if it's messy right now when it comes to topology or anything, because I'm going to be either projecting this to another topology I have, which is the one I use for all those characters, because I know that the UVs are optimal and everything, or doing with this guy here, but maybe like doing a slight retopology later on. So you see, like I'm gonna have to close pretty good. Even if I look at this one here as he's more neutral without the smile, it's pretty much all the way closed up. So I'm gonna have to do something similar to that. Let's see how far we can get. Topology-wise, if you have something like this, for example, like if you look at the topology, it's pretty much a circle in there, right? So that means if you press, for example, like a W here, you're gonna enter this mode, right, for scale and everything. If you press Control and then you click and drag here, for example, you're gonna select an area that's a circle like that. So I'm gonna try to do that and isolate that. Or you could simply, you know, select the group and just mask the group as well. It would work fine. But in this case here, I'm basically isolating just this little, you know, like the circle around the eye here. So I have easier access to just pull this whole thing down, because it has to come down quite a bit. I'm just gonna go there here. I'm gonna really pull this. It's a big fold, man. And it actually builds up all the way to the side in here. Look at that. It's pretty amazing, actually. You're gonna have to build up that form. And again, from the front, it might look okay, but from the bottom, you have to make sure that those pieces are tight together. So, you know, I was gonna pull this a little bit towards the inside in here, and then reverse it and then pull this area too. Just make sure it's close enough. We're just blocking it right now anyway, but it has to be close enough. And then I'm gonna pull it down. The eye position we're gonna be tweaking, eye size, all that stuff. But for now, we have to get an idea about the character. I'm gonna get down a little bit. This corner too. And if you want to check without the mask, for example, if you press Control H, you hide the mask. So you can keep sculpting without the mask in there, but at least you have something to, you know, so the mask is actually not bothering you. So I'm gonna get down here, and then the same way I did that, I'm gonna just like create another mask here. Let's say, let's go back to this, and then let's try to mask just the bottom lid. So I'm gonna mask both of them like that, and then I'm gonna just paint a little mask around there, just to mask the top of it. And the inside of the eye there, I'm not caring too much right now. I'm just gonna make it very, very roughly here, because I just want to get those the pockets in here in a fairly okay position, actually. So I'm just gonna pull it up slightly to close up the eye a little bit. And all this stuff, like I said, I'm gonna be projecting to a more decent base mesh later on. Or take a challenge and just like use this one, like you know, some of you might want to use, but I hope not. I hope you guys have a better base mesh, but this one is just gonna be something temporary, you know. So for the eye bags, I'm noticing like the size eye bags are lower. I'm gonna bring them lower in here, and I'm gonna start looking for other clues, you know. For example, like the bump in his nose here, it starts giving me an idea about like how wide it might be. So I'm gonna keep it the way I have in this area here, and I'm gonna just make a little bit broader right here. Then there's a little bit of the distance, the length of the nose in here. I'm gonna try to, you know, eyeball a little bit the distance between the bag in here and the corner of the nose. So I'm just gonna keep building. Let's just bring this one slightly up, and maybe like just reduce that size a little bit. So I'm gonna bring the corner down very slightly, bring this one up very slightly, and then start building up. Let's switch to my clay build up here. And so we're gonna build up some of that form. See, like it's very soft. I'm using 2 as intensity. Just gonna build some of that in, just so I have an idea. And then for the nose in here, let's, one thing that's interesting to observe, like with the nasal labial, that some people miss is actually, it doesn't stop here, right? For example, like you always think that the nasal labial is gonna stop right here. So basically, like that's the whole area that's gonna be affected. But in reality, this whole thing here, it actually continues, this form continues. So if I do it very strongly, so you guys can see it visually here, it's like this, you know, it's like starts right here in the nose, and it goes like that. So that's this little bit of the form that's it accumulates right here, and it reveals itself like during like a smile. You know, you get like this to pull. It's not going to be super visible in everyone, but a lot of people are going to have that very visible. So I'm going to build up some of that for me here. So I'm going to start from here, just build a tiny little bit of it, and then I'm going to continue. And the way I'm doing this movement here is basically, is like up and down right here, like up and down. And then when I get to this area here, I'm actually going to follow the curvature. So it's a combination of following the form like with very broad strokes, and then crisscrossing with the smaller strokes against the opposite direction. And then a little bit of smooth, you know, from time to time, just to get that. So here I'm noticing that he has, you know, some other volumes in here. So I'm going to keep building that volume towards the nasal labial again. So I'm going to build a little bit of that. And obviously this is like like it's very, very early stages. And we're going to be actually chasing all those forms by looking at different angles. I like marking this little tip right here, so we can have an idea about the cartilage, right? And there's a split in here as well. So I'm going to, you know, build that one in. I'm going to build that split very slightly like that, and add a little bit more thickness to the side right here. So basically, like, just make sure that it reads as a single form that goes all the way around in the splits, right? And then here around the tip, I'm just going to cut it a little bit and add more form right here at the tip. On the sides, not so much in the middle, right? Right on the sides, and then I can start blending right in the middle, just building some of that form in there. For the nostrils, at this point, I have no clue what his nostrils are like. I'm just like guessing that if his nose is slightly big like that, probably like this is gonna come towards the tip, and this one is gonna have to come a little bit deeper. So just like by guessing right now, right? Like without looking at my reference, I would say that something probably like that would happen. And then because of the smile, the nose, probably like the tip of the nose, even if you have like a big laugh, it doesn't move that much, right? It stays fairly in place. It's gonna move slightly up, but not by much. But this area here, depending on the smile, this is gonna go up quite a bit. In the case of Stan Winston, right? Like he went back like quite a bit up like that on the base. But it doesn't seem like he's smiling too much in here. So you're just gonna keep like a slight elevation in there. And obviously we're gonna be checking all those things against the other stuff. So the sides of the face, we're gonna start working on the frame right now. It's gonna switch back to clay buildup. Sorry, like making the interface shrink and expand here is just because I want to make sure you guys are seeing what I'm doing there. And then I want to make sure I have access to all the menus as well. So let's just like work a little bit on the zygomatic area here. Another thing I do with ZBrush under render, I turn off the preview shadows, not off, but all the way down. So I actually can see more stuff. So you see like, that's the default, right? You get all those shadows. And sometimes I like seeing them, but sometimes I just like having it plain. So I can actually see I see the forms better that way for some reason. But then obviously we're gonna be checking this model from all angles. You're gonna be spinning around, you're gonna go up and down, you know, so I can keep looking at it, because we have to check for those angles, you know. For example, like the corner of the mouth that I said before, you know, it's like, see that arch and there's not like very good right now. So if I pull it towards the back a little bit more, it gets a little bit more of a, you know, it looks tighter against the teeth, right? So I'm gonna just do that. Same thing is gonna happen with the eyebrows, right? You're gonna have to have a nice arch in there, but it has to look, Yeah, I see like this is a little bit flat in here. In females, normally you get more of that. It's a little bit more flat, but in males, you're gonna get a little bit more narrow towards the, you know, the beginning of the forehead in here. So let's get that, and let's build up some of his let's see, clay build up. Where is it? Right here. Go. Let's build up some of his eyebrows. And that's the way I normally go, you know. It's like there's no order for what I'm doing. Like I'm not like planning to do, for example, I'm gonna just nail the eye area straight away, and I'm gonna move from that point on to something else. I actually go all over the place, and my eyes are just like I'm just darting, you know. It's like and looking for clues of the form, and whatever gives me a clue, I just jump to it and then do some work on that and move to the next one. But I never get anything like to look perfect at all. I just like block things, and I keep moving in circles, you know. I go back to this area here later on, and then from here I'm gonna go down again to some other area, and but always like trying to just like find out like those clues. So I'm gonna be shaving a little bit here, that side, and it seems like his forehead, like the temporalis here, is gonna get a little bit of the volume deeper. So you have like a very well-defined temporalis. And probably his forehead's gonna be higher than this as well. I'm gonna have to work on the volume in there. See that the nose in here is still too pretty, so I'm gonna have to actually break up this area. And then the sides here are important as well, how deep they go on the sides. So I'm gonna try to nail those little lines in here. Those are a nice indication. Let's see what time that is. It's 10:21. Okay, so I'm gonna just get those lines to read in a similar fashion. This area here, normally like the structure here looks like this. So you're gonna come with the volume underneath like that, right? But then here you start like shaving it a little bit and then building as a curve. Everything has a rhythm, you know? So those forms, they always like end into another form. And when you're building one form against the other one, it's very important that you're using the clay buildup instead of like the general brush in ZBrush. See how thin this thing got? We're gonna solve this problem later. I'm gonna build some of this. I can actually use right now a little bit of the inflate brush just to recover that. I'm gonna notice it went so crazy. I'm just gonna inflate that slightly. And then maybe use a little bit of the move brush here to bring it higher. Yeah, something like that. Just it's not so mushed up. And let's go back to our clay buildup. This one. Yeah, what's gonna happen in here tonight is probably like I'm gonna be keeping working on this model while your videos are being prepared. So I'm gonna put another 2 hours after the class on this model. But I'm gonna try to go as far as I can during the class, so you guys can see how I'm approaching the forms, and you can see like everything is built in small increments, right? It's not like something like hyper fast or anything like that. But like I said, like I'm gonna block stuff up with the move brush fairly fast, but then everything in between, you know, is like the little secondary forms, you're gonna be built like more carefully and in very small increments. So I'm gonna build like some of his masseter in here. I'm gonna just remove some of it. It's an older guy, so that's, you know, it's gonna start like losing some of that volume. One thing you can actually explore in the next classes is talk about the fat pads underneath the skin. Also very important, you know. I'm always more fascinated with surface anatomy than I am with actually the muscle anatomy thing, you know. Because the muscles, I mean, like if you don't have someone completely ripped, it's going to be very hard to actually, you know, see someone like that ripped and everything is going to be very hard to make something natural. You know, it's always going to look like a superhero or something like that. But when it's surface anatomy, that's what fascinates me, you know, all the how the gravity is going to act into the face, how the fat pad is going to basically like shrink over time. Like as you get older, they get much smaller, and until they barely like you know, it's like they barely are there. So they reveal a lot of the bone structure bone structure underneath and everything. So yeah, this part is what fascinates me the most. You know, if you're looking for something naturalistic, that's the type of anatomy you should be looking at. You know, it's like the surface anatomy, like really what the fat pads are doing, how the forms are being created. You know, it's like how those forms collide with each other. I always use like an approach that's trying to actually feel what I'm sculpting. You know, it's like because this is not a physical piece, so it's very hard to understand. You know, it's like to feel it, right? Like there's no feeling. But I try to imagine I'm touching those forms and what's causing them to, you know, it's like to stretch and shrink and collide with another one, creating a kind of like another volume, you know. So it always fascinates me, you know, this stuff. For the chin, you normally like I see this another common mistake, like people build the chin as a single form, like for example something like that, like round, right? But the chin is a little bit more complex than we think. You know, it's like if you look like very closely, you're gonna notice, and even in him in there. Let me just switch to this brush so you can actually see when I carve it. Standard brush. Very slightly right here, you're gonna notice there's a little line. Let me see if I can subdivide one more, maybe. Subdivide once more so you can see it. So around here, it's very, very slight. So you're gonna have like a very faint line right there, right? And then around here, you're gonna have a little line right there that I can see in the model. Oh, just made the zebra shoot across, okay. So another line right here. And then this line here, sometimes what you get is like it continues coming down, and then you get this extra volume. So basically like the chin is very, instead of like being a single volume, it becomes like three, right? And then this adds a lot to the character when you sculpt in three forms. So if you have something like this, you're gonna try to build up a little volume on the side right here, then you split it around here, and then sometimes even like keep the little ball right here in the middle, and you know, build up a little bit underneath like that, and build up a little bit into this smooth. From time to time, I use the H polish brush, just like to actually define my planes and to actually get something more that I can actually feel better. For example, like from a distance, right? Like the model sometimes works great from, you know, from up close, and you start looking like, oh, that is looking good and everything. And then you're going to start going really far like that, and it starts like falling apart, especially when you do a little render, you know, it's like you render something like that, and then like all of a sudden it doesn't work. So I would always check the model, you know, it's like from different distances, and try to get it to read correctly, you know. Those volumes need to work first before we can even move to, you know, it's like to super high detail stuff, right? Although it's very tempting, it's something that we have to avoid for now. So for the chicks in here, let's keep building some of this volume. Remember, I marked them in here, so I'm gonna look for them again, and I'm gonna just establish that my zygomatic's around there. So I'm building in diagonal right here. I'm building diagonal towards the nasal labial right here. So yeah, 1020.
Chris?
Yes.
Excuse me, Alfonso is asking if for the off class work, is it possible for you to record it as well?
Oh, for the off one?
Yeah, the 2 hours you're gonna put the model after the class. He's asking if you can record it.
That's a good question, because I don't know, man. That was not my plan, you know. but I can record. I mean, like sometimes I post stuff on Instagram anyway. I could, you know, as a courtesy, do that. But I mean, yeah, I can do that. Let's do that, because this is the beginning of the class, and since I'm gonna be posting something tonight, I can post like a continuation of it for you guys in private. But then it's not something I'm planning to do constantly, just so you guys know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You guys are getting 32 hours of content. But yeah, I don't mind like doing like since we're just gonna, you know, I think this is an important step anyway. So it's gonna be good for you guys to actually watch whatever I'm doing. So yeah, I don't mind continuing. I just don't know how you would work though. I mean, like, because right now you guys are online and I have the system on and everything. maybe I can set up like a fake meeting or something like that, and I can actually just record from the fake meeting because I never did this before. So I'm pretty newbie when it comes to this whole experience, right? So the past class was my first one streaming, and it wasn't too bad, you know. It's like in terms of bugs, we had like 2 bugs in the last like 3 days of class. We had like some crashes with Maya. It was actually XGen that was failing, man. XGen, when you start adding curves and stuff like that, it's pretty famous for crashing. And but I actually, you know, managed to actually get rid of all the guides and just like go ahead and like do everything manually, and then that actually solved my problem. So yeah, I hope we don't have that. But you guys are free to ask questions, like anything related to the class, or you know, it's like anything I can help you guys with. It'd be nice, I mean, like if you guys can start like finding what's the subject you want to work in during the class or after, you know, because like I said, we don't have like an assignment or anything like that, but we have that space. Oh, I have to show this space actually. It's a little space in the forum, not the forum, but a group we have on Facebook that's called, if you guys are not there yet, if you want to sign in or just like ask to enter, I can just accept you guys. This is like, is a funny name that the Palomita gave to our first group. It's called Flies Are People Too, which is pretty funny, man. It's pretty brilliant too. You know, it's like fly on the wall. So like flies are people too. And then I created this one that's the June 2019. And we already have 15 of you guys in there. So we are kind of like almost halfway. We have like about 34 people in this group. So if you guys want to join, it's all there. I can show you what we have here just as a reference. Our past class, this is what we had in there. So we have 22 members in there. And then we have a lot of stuff from students, you know. It's like this was from Ran. He was doing like this Don Quixote. And then we have some tips, you know, it's like people share about like creating the detail. You know, it's like some likeness studies and renders with some of the settings I passed to them and everything. You know, it's like other studies here. You know, I'm still working on his shaders and skin color and everything. But yeah, it's pretty cool. You know, it's like it's cool because other people actually comment on them. You know, and you know what's going on with the model, how can you improve it, things like that. So it's pretty cool, you know, it's like to have a space like that. So if you can, it's a great way to just like keep in the loop. You know, it's like if I have some announcement or something like that, you can just go there. So hashtag Flies Are People Too, June 2019, you can find that. And if you ask to enter, I'm going to accept you guys.
Hey, man.
Hello.
I'm the one always asked first.
No problem.
My question is, as you know more than all of us, in production environment, sometimes it happens that the client asks us to do the face without any expression. And sometimes all the pictures and references we can gather are with facial expressions. And yeah. I want to know what's your approach for this, for these kind of things. Do you have any tricks, or you guess if in the image the person smiles like this? For natural pose, I mean, without any expression, it would be kind of like this. Do you have any tricks?
No, I don't know if I get it. Like you're asking, like if we want to like neutralize a face.
Yes. Yeah, but for the time, we don't have any natural image of that person. For example, you have only these images of the guy you are working on, and he always smiles.
Okay.
What's your approach, or making a face without this smile?
Well, that's going to be idealized, right? Like I think what's going to happen is that see, I got some intersection going on there. What's going to happen is that either you're going to have to find the piece of the puzzle which actually has the guy with the more neutral face, or you're going to have to idealize. And to idealize, you're going to have to understand a little bit more the facial structure to get that. You know, it's like I don't think there is a way, like a secret or a formula to do that, because it's all about like you know, finding references that actually can bring the guy closer to that, right? I mean, like production is a very different beast than what we are doing here. This is like my own little pipeline, you know, it's like in trying to approach things in a very organic way and get like fast results the way I'm doing here. In production, I mean, like you're gonna have to chase things and really try to find those expressions, you know. It's like to be able to neutralize is going to be very hard. We did, like, for example, like for the, if we got like concept art, for example, for Warcraft, right? It's basically like just fantasy characters.
Yep.
And then we're going to have like those characters like screaming and stuff like that. And you're only going to get the concept like that. And then you're going to have to actually imagine that character like in a neutral position. And you can do that because it's a fantasy character. But when it comes to an actual human, it's very hard to trick alone, you know. It's like just nail the likeness alone, and even more like to nail like an expression or a neutral expression without actually having the neutral expression available to you, you know. It would be very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, is there any way, way or approach which works for you? I know it's not, there is no that much a trick because it's kind of guessing and testing out to see what works. Yeah, I wanted to know, is there any approach you've tested before and see it works? But
yeah, like my personal approach is actually I try to find averages, right? So if I find like all those expressions, and let's say like I'm looking for, you know, I always talk about this, like trying to capture the soul of the character, right? So if I do a search for a certain character and the guy is normally like smiling, for example, the case of Stan Winston, I think half of the reference, the guy was smiling. And so I try to capture that, you know. It all depends on the character. Like I said, in production is going to be a totally different approach, but then in my personal work, I'm going to try to actually capture what represents that person the most, you know. And in this case here, I mean, like this is one of the ones I found of him smiling, but most of them he's not smiling. But I think you're going to go for the smile again, just as a additional exercise, you know. But really, no formula, you know. It's I think the basic thing is to actually observe the anatomy itself, how those relationships work. You know, it's like if you're pulling the nasal labial here that I'm doing right now, right, to create the expression, I'm gonna have to think about like everything that's causing this pull, right? Like how the zygomatic muscles in here are pulling everything up. And then if I'm thinking about like a neutralized version of that, I'm gonna have to actually try to reverse engineer the whole thing in my own head, which is gonna be a guess game if I don't have the reference, right? So basically, like I would have to bring like a relaxation of this form back in here. Basically, everything I'm doing, I'm gonna have to reverse to try to neutralize them, but without any guarantee that we're gonna have like it nailed. You know, it's like it's a guess game. It's really a guess game.
Mm-hmm. So you mean there is no a special brush for that?
Yeah, there is this brush called ZBrush. It's really good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's like a lot of the stuff I do, man. It's like brute force, you know. It's like carefully trying to recreate reality, but without like complete nailing it. It's almost like the way I see the stuff I do is like a combination of efforts, you know, it's like different techniques being used with the purpose of creating something realistic at the end. But if you really look closely, nothing actually matches the actual subject, you know. So today, for example, I posted this Stan Winston on Artstation and everywhere, and then what happens is that some people are like, oh, I think his face should be narrower or something like that, you know. It was like, man, it's an unfinished work, you know, and it's all idealized mostly, and trying to eyeball most of the forms, you know. So obviously, I'm not going to be as precise like as a scan or anything like that, but this is kind of like I do it consciously, because one thing that I really appreciate when I see the work of you guys, for example, like you are a bunch of talented guys. And when I see your work, sometimes I know the person who actually made it because I can see the style, you know, and I see nothing wrong with stylization. Uh, uh, when I do something like this, that's like approach that's much more free, I have a lot of room for keeping stylization in there, and without compromising the realism of it. I always use like an example, like a real world example, which is like Ron Mueck, that he actually creates like beautifully hyper realistic pieces with a lot of stylization. You know, it's like he came from a family, I believe, like they are puppeteers. You know, it's like in toy makers. So he has this stylization baked into his psyche. You know, and it really shows. I mean, like it's a beautifully constructed forms. You know, but everything is a little bit stylized, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Yeah, if you guys can have both, for example, if you have keep your stylization and add realism to it, I think it's the best of both worlds, because if you try to remove this style from a piece, then you basically everything becomes very sterile, right? So you're going to be using like a very surgical approach for likeness and stuff, and then you're going to be missing this gigantic opportunity to actually create something that's remarkable, you know, something that people can actually connect to and identify, you know. So it's very important to keep your style for sure. Baking in some forms in here, just gonna pull that corner slightly. But yeah, I since I'm planning to do this tonight and get some more of the basic stuff baked in there, I'm gonna definitely record it tonight, but not gonna do this every night for sure. But tonight, I think it's an important step. You know, I think it's like reasonable to ask for it, and I'm gonna do this, gladly do it, and I'm gonna post as a secondary video, like an add-on video in the morning or something.
Hey Chris, can I ask you something?
Sure, yeah, definitely.
I'm wondering how can I develop my character without the whole settings that you using for yours, with the 3/4 profile and the front view, because I'm trying to make the great master, great master from the paint great master,
yeah,
from 15 something.
Yeah.
8 something, and I can't find any profile picture from this guy, and I really wanted to see how did you make that challenger with the was Michelangelo, right?
Michelangelo, yeah.
How can you find the 3/4 and the profile and the front? You made everything with just one picture?
It's a couple of pictures, actually. Let me see if I can find it here. Let's look at the ones I have for Michelangelo. So I have references. It's basically like what happened with Michelangelo is that there was like one of his friends did the main drawing.
Oh.
I believe this was the main drawing. And then a lot of them derived from this one. So like a lot of them look exactly the same angle, like this one and this one. You know, it's like this one is got like a mirrored version of it. So it's hard to trust because it became like an interpretation of a drawing of someone else, from someone else. But then I have this side viewing here from him, also like a very stylized version. Yeah, and then of course, like they had a death mask, and it was very dirty, so there's a lot of noise in there. But I believe that the sculpture that came, this is a digital sculpture from Marco De Luca. Actually, he did this one, so I ended up saving in there just to see how he approached it. But this is actually supposed to be, you know, it's like Michelangelo, but then this is supposed to be Michelangelo as well. I see like the face is much less wide, and yeah, it's a combination, man, of many things, you know. For example, like when I look at this one here, this was the sculpture was based on his face, the death mask, but then the body, someone idealized it and made it kind of like a hero body, right? Like it looks very athletic and everything, because that was the way they're trying to portray him. But it's known that he had problems, you know, like walking sometimes. He had a little bit of a hunch. And then, so he was not the healthiest person, and he wasn't even like the cleanest person, you know, he barely washed himself and stuff. So when I'm building him, I'm actually trying to represent those things, you know, so I can try to come up with the idealization of them, but using very little clues. So I think you have plenty of room to create something, which is really cool, you know.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, this is basically the model I have at this point, you know. It's like still working on it. I'm gonna have to resolve a lot of things. It seems like the nose got a little bit too long. But yeah, it's kind of like, I stopped right there, but I'm gonna have to go back. And his nose actually got broken by a friend who punched him in the face or something. He got the little fight in there, but yeah, and this is what fascinates me, you know. It's like he started with very little references, and then learn with anatomy from other characters that you have more references. And I think like a useful thing for you would be to actually find pictures of people in the same period of time, like similar ages, maybe different portraits, different people, just to capture like the type of clothing they are using, and eventually capture like the similar type of face too, you know. So anything similar you can find would be very, very helpful.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, of course. So here, this is a tricky one when you get older, right? Like all the jowls, right? You're gonna start building some jowls here. So let's do that. So like the clay build up, let's build some jowls. It's a very weird name to say when you're not from this country. Things sound a little funny sometimes, and jowls sounds a little funny. So let's do that. So it's gonna build and come towards the bottom right here and hide in there. And then sometimes, of course, you're gonna have like different types of people gonna have different types of weird stuff happening. Sometimes you're gonna start like building up a form that goes like that, right? Like this is gonna become a web. And then sometimes people have like two of them going this direction, cutting across the mastoids in there. But then sometimes people have just a single one right in the middle, right? So it's like very, very tricky. And then obviously I'm looking at this one here, this picture, and he's like probably like rotating his head slightly. So he's not gonna, like gonna have a precise idea what's going on. But what I know looking at the picture, and that's the thing about learning how to observe, is that, for example, he doesn't have a strong, you know, mastoids anymore. It's just like this is all gonna be like kind of saggy skin. So I'm gonna be building up some of that form and hoping I'm gonna get a little bit more of a, you know, his trapezius in here, a little bit higher, maybe like a little thicker neck. I'm not sure because I have to look like towards the front, but definitely this whole area here is gonna have to be shrank. So I'm gonna just cover it up with some clay buildup. It's too strong. You see, like even at 2 is too strong. So I'm gonna put at 1. And you see, like my clay buildup, I use this alpha, this square one, because I like seeing the clay marks and everything. But when I get more precise and I start like looking for like the forms like being round and everything, I switch this alpha to something like 36 or 37, something like that, or 35. So it's a little bit more round, and then you get like, you don't get those little marks, you know, you just get like a more perfect stuff. So I'm gonna build up. I see like this form here, like his mastoid is a little developed actually. It's just like very well marked. It has a little volume cutting right here. Just gonna mark that for now. I'm gonna try to build it up towards the back right here. And normally when I do that, I normally build not diagonal like that, right? But in this case here, I'm noticing that his forms, because of the smile, are being pulled pretty far. So his jowls here actually starting to get a little bit more wide around here. And obviously when you start rotating the model, this is gonna be, you know, it's like building up the silhouette of the face, right? So I'm gonna have to actually build it up like kind of slowly now. So yeah, it's almost like I reached a point that's kind of like in place, So I'm not gonna build too much, but I'm gonna actually remove some of this there. Another thing is it's the lighting, right? Like in this case, here's a very diffuse lighting. So a lot of the form is going to be very soft, very hard to read. So you can tell I spend a long time in a single pose like that, at the risk of, for example, like doing something that I shouldn't be doing because of, you know, it's like some other angle is going to lie to me, right? It's going to actually, it's going to tell me the truth. This one is the one lying to me. But I like working that way. You know, it's like I like getting the feel of the character first, like the expression, the, you know, the intention and things like that, before I move to another angle and really concentrate and try to fix what's wrong. So like the ear is probably going to be bigger because he's an older dude and ears keep growing. So you're just going to expand it a little bit, again, without looking at the reference from the side, just like to get the scale and then get a little closer to here. For the forehead, like I said, it might be like a bigger forehead later on. I don't know if by much, but, you know, I'm going to build a little bit. Maybe a little bit towards the back in here. So it starts to get a little bit of, hello? Sorry?
Yeah, I got a question, Chris.
Yeah.
Two questions, actually. Do you ever look at reference of different ages for the likeness that you're going at? And also, do you find younger people more difficult to do because they have less landmarks and whatnot?
Yes. First, like I get anything I can get, you know, it's like, for example, if I find references of him, like much younger that has like a, you know, it's like a better profile for the nose and stuff like that, I know I'm going to have to shrink the volumes. You know, it's like actually grow the volumes if he's too young. I'm going to have to actually add more stuff. But at least like I can have some bone landmarks, you know, it's like it's very important. But the other question was what it was again, the second one?
About age, whether you find younger people.
Oh, more challenging, definitely more challenging. Yeah, in terms of, you know, it's like this class has a good chunk of it dedicated to detailing the skin, right? And then because of that, I thought it would be good to keep going with the, you know, it's like with the older people, because we can actually really go to town with the detail and explore that. But in terms of challenge, I would say like females and young kids, for example, are very, very challenging because there is no way to hide, right? The forms have to be precise and they are very subtle. So it's very challenging, definitely. But I think I'm going to separate, for example, like when I start doing something like that, I'm going to probably create a different class, you know, create something like, okay, sculpting the female face or something, you know. But in terms of like really exploring what we have in this class, which is like building detail, I think it's better to just like go to town with the old folks. And also because like all those guys are still in my list of, you know, it's like the people who inspired me, artists who inspired me. And it turns out they're all like white old men. It's not my fault. It's like, man, someone went full PC on me the other day on I think it was like on Instagram. It's like, oh, why you only model like those, you know, it's like the white supremacy, right, or something like that. And it was like, man, it's not their fault that they are born white and males, and it's not my fault that I picked them as my idols, because I only work look at their work. I never look at the content of their character, the content of their looks or anything. You know, it's like it's just the content of the character, and that's how I approach life. You know, it's like I'm not a racist. I'm just like, you know, I just like the people I like. Actually, I was very tempted to model my wife. She's very pretty, and because she actually
brave man.
Yeah. And then she was so sweet. She said like, man, you can go to town. You know, it's like you can just like, I know I'm 45 years old now, and I know I have some wrinkles here and there, so don't feel bad. You know, it's like you can add all of them. It was like, oh, this is a trap. I heard that before. That's like divorce waiting to happen, man. I was like, nope, not falling for that. But no, I all jokes aside, I'm planning to actually model her eventually, because yeah, she has a very pretty face, and she's a great woman. So I'm gonna do that eventually. But yeah, I have to be like outside of the class. I think it's a little bit too personal to just like expose my wife to everybody. But okay, now let's pretend this is in a good spot, which is not. And then we're gonna switch views here. Let's look at the profile. Let's see what we get from the profile. Not you. Michelangelo is out. So let's see. This guy. This one. This is a good one, actually. He's younger. This is a good one, too. A little bit from the top. But this is the one we're looking for. Yeah, I'm gonna just post like on, just like I did with Stan Winston. It's just gonna be like a blocked version of him. If you look at my Instagram. So my first post, like the first day I started sculpting, was this one right here. See, it's like, it's very blocked. There's nothing super major in there, you know, like the teeth is very blocked out in there. And then from that on, like the next one was this one, was a little cleaner. And then evolved to this one, still like very, very stylized. And that one started getting a little bit more realistic in terms of proportion. And then I started detailing already because it was kind of okay with the forms, even though it was not matched the likeness. And then I got into this very crazy looking bald mole. He looks like a mole without the hair. And then experimenting with the lighting and the shaders and everything. And that's what I want you guys to do. As soon as we start exploring, and probably this is gonna happen tomorrow already, we're gonna bring the model, whatever I have done, we're gonna bring to Maya, and we're gonna add some HDRI, and then start rendering some stuff. And I want you guys to do the same, you know, it's like do this as soon as possible, because it's impossible to judge form just by using ZBrush with this crazy fake cameras. See, like the nose got a little bit too big. With a fake camera and everything, it's very hard to judge like the volumes. So I would say you start like straight away doing as many renders as you can, and then you can judge the form, and you can basically like go after whatever is missing, you know. So yeah, we're gonna be doing this tomorrow. Start some renders. Like I said, like I follow a lot of you guys. You know, it's like there's a lot of very high profile artists in here. Some colleagues as well, like from ILM or ex-colleagues. And in my previous class, I had Sven, which is a great artist from ILM as well. And he took my class, you know, it's like, and I thought like, man, you don't have anything to learn, you know, like, I mean, like, you know so much already. But he's like, he got totally into it, man. He's like, he's working his ass off to get all this stuff done. And he's really enjoying the process, you know, it's like just discovering new stuff with XGen and telling me, you know, it's like, oh, I found out this stuff, you know, it's easier to control the hair like this, blah, blah, blah. So it's very cool to see people excited, you know, it's like doing their own thing. Because when I'm doing this stuff here, is I never did this this character before, right? So to me, everything is new. And as you know, for example, like if you watch like someone doing caricatures, those guys, they're extremely good at that, at capture like just like the main iconic. Look how bad he got in here. Like the iconic features in the face, right? The caricatures are pretty amazing. But at the same time, those guys, the very good ones, they don't do like a straight away a portrait that looks exactly like the guy. They do many studies, you know. They really want to capture like what's the essence of that guy. And then in my case here, I'm actually going straight away to the portrait, and I'm gonna be chasing a lot of stuff. And I want you guys to be conscious about that, you know, because maybe some stuff I'm gonna be getting faster than you are, because maybe I have more experience with my own little pipeline. But this is not true when it comes like to the form itself, you know. It's like, because like I said, most of you guys are professional modelers already, and you probably approach things in a very different way. So I think the value of the class is going to be, so you got very, very hunch here. The value of the class is going to be to actually incorporate whatever you can from my pipeline into yours to help you to do the stuff the best you can, you know. There are no rules in here. Everything is very different. Palomita even said, you know, it's like, it's almost like I had to learn how to walk again when I did his class, because it's a little true, you know. It's like my approach for stuff is very unusual, especially when it comes to detail, doing everything by hand. But I think you guys can appreciate, because everything you can get, you know, is like to help you, your own work, I think is going to be very valid. And I think there's a lot of stuff I can teach you guys, or at least expose you guys to, you know. It's going to be a fun ride. I can see it. I can tell you guys going to get into it and going to get excited about it. And we're gonna all make cool stuff together. So let's try this standard. And this is another thing I'm probably going to avoid the next class as well. It's like this flip and, you know, keep flipping between the two modes in here in ZBrush, so I can actually show you what I'm doing on the side. Because now you can see what I'm doing. And basically what I'm going to do, I'm going to move my reference to the side. And only if I have to actually tell you guys something very specific, then I can bring the reference back. But if it's just like keep going with the forms, I think is going to be overkill to have on the side at all times. Unless you guys want, I can keep it in there too. It's just harder for me to actually switch the ZBrush interface all the time, but I don't mind doing it. Just gonna do, like now with the smile, his jowls here, everything is out of place, right? For example, like this line here that he's going down, right? Like if he's in neutral position, is going this way, right? Pretty much like straight down. Now, with the smile, it's going towards his chin, right? So it's that curve that I told you guys that sometimes it ends up building into this secondary form in the chin in here, and everything becomes kind of like a, you know, it's like a connected in there at the end. So, so I'm just building volumes right now and trying to get a little bit of his, yeah, you see like his his eyelids, like the top eyelids, they get very thick, although there's a little bit of gravity happening in there too. But I would say like with the clay build up, I can actually build some more of those forms. But you see, like when it comes to likeness, I think the best practice would be, of course, like trying to find cameras that actually match across the board. But it's very hard when you're just looking for like a candid shots like that, you know, and that adds an extra layer of challenge to me, which is very exciting, which is like, how can you actually nail something that you don't have a direct reference, you know? So all you can do is just like use your imagination and the knowledge you can develop with, you know, doing portraits over time, and then have this entire room for expression, you know? Even the pores work that I did for all those characters, some people might think like, oh, it's very boring work, but there's a lot of freedom in a certain way and creativity going there, because I'm not actually nailing anything. I'm not trying to mesh like a one-to-one with anything. I'm actually just like going to town with those details and just having fun with it. Let's see, standard. Let's go back in here. And again, now I'm sculpting this area here that I'm not seeing. So, you know, as you can see, I'm all over the place. But at the end of the day, like I said, I just want to get the feel of it. So his nose probably going to be smaller, but there's the smile, so I'm going to have to compensate for it. So it's always a chase. And eventually going to find more pictures of him from different angles. And I'm going to start like, oh, that's another piece of the puzzle that I needed. And then all of a sudden things start, you know, working better. Maybe again a little bit too much in there. I'm gonna build some of those volumes forward. Also, of course, like this, you guys should know this better, but you know, always have something like this handy. I have like just a miniature version of it, just a little skull, like this is from Anatomy Tools. But if you have like a life-size skull, that's even better, you know, to actually check things. For example, like, let me just use the clay buildup again. Where is it? Right here. So, you know, it's like landmarks. Like, you know, it's like if he wasn't smiling here, I would try to, you know, it's like to define, for example, the orbital bone here. So I would have actually, you know, something really well marked in there, right? And I would go around and then I try to find, you know, it's like this little forming here, right? Things like that I could mark in my model as a starting point. That would be really cool, like to double check with the reference of a skull. In this case here, I mean, like I kind of have a notion of what's going on underneath, like just based on what I'm seeing there. Seems like his features are much softer because of he's an older guy, you know, and then a lot of those features are more soft. But if it was like a very skinny guy, for example, this would be much more revealed, right? Like all those forms like in the forehead and everything. So at this point, I'm kind of like starting to spin in the same spot in here because I'm not seeing a lot of different angles. So I'm gonna have to switch again and try to search for more information in another shot. So let's look for another one here.
Chris.
Yes.
Excuse me again. Icello is asking the thing. Can anyone ask if he's using the rescaled model? Because every time when he reports the head in real size, 22 centimeter into ZBrush, my brushes become too small.
The brush becomes too small?
Yeah, he's having some problem importing the head, and he's asking if you were using the rescaled model that you did yesterday.
Yes, that's the rescale model. So I actually brought it back here. I can actually bring it. Let's delete this one. Let's see. I can double check just to make sure. So let's delete that one. And then let's import it here. And this is the from Maya that we saved yesterday. So let's get that one. And
I believe that's because of dynamic draw size.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's basically the same model. So it's the same size. So that's checked. In terms of the brush size, I think, do you have the dynamic on? Because normally, like what happens if you have a brush that's not changing size, you just double click that and then it turns on. So now you have like now he actually obeys the size of it. So it's very tiny right now, right? But if I double click it, now I actually grow it much bigger. So just make sure you have the dynamic here, like just do a little double click in there. Just make sure that it unlocks it for you, you know? Otherwise it's gonna be very tiny. And I'm gonna just save the model for the first time after all this time here, because I love living dangerously, I guess. So this is gonna be our first, no, the second actually, right? Yesterday we saved just that base model. So I'm just gonna save this one as Ray HD. We can actually separate that as like a Ray likeness study 1, something like that. Just save the scene so I can actually keep going with it. But yeah, did you check if your dynamic was on? I don't know. He cannot talk, right? He's
Yeah, he cannot talk right now, but if he says something, I'll let you know.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy.
So I switched my lens in here to about 50 because it seems like that one is a little bit wider. So I'm going to have to actually try to tweak his ears now, because I can see his ears are a little bit more on the, see, like my brush is very small right now. I'm going to double click it. Oh, actually here, it's better if I click in there. There you go. So now it's unlocked. So I can actually go back and then do some, bring this ears back. Oops, not this one.
He just checked it and it was the dynamic thing.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was the problem.
Yeah, that happens. I'm glad you found out. That's awesome. So for his nostrils, seems like the nostrils are a little bit higher as well. So I'm gonna be just yeah, he has this this very well built right here. Let's see, default. Where is it? No, not default. The standard. So standard. Standard brush. So I'm just gonna try to get a little bit of this line underneath right here, the nostril. So we're gonna get this one. Sometimes you can go just to define the forms, right? You can just like go around like that, and then just smooth out closer to the tip. Because sometimes when you have a smile like that, it ends up like cutting across a little bit like that, depending on the person, of course. And then there's another very subtle form that happens, which is like a kind of like a wrinkle sometimes that happens around here, right? Depending on the smile. I don't know if he has it, but some of the other models I built, they have this little volume that I had to build up right here because of the, you know, imagine that everything is being compressed, right? Like the lips are being raised, and then there's a lot of flashing here. So it creates this kind of like almost like a little bump, right, against this, the cartilage of the nose. So everything, when you're sculpting forms like that, you have to think logically. You know, it's like, why is that volume being caused? You know, it's like, why is this volume is being created, right? Like how the eye bags are being squished like that, you know? And then see, like, he has a little bit of that, but I went too far in here, so I'm gonna have to bring it down a little bit. But yeah, it's always a chase. It's just like, this is the fun part to me. That's why I avoid like using scans and stuff, because actually that does most of the work for you, you know. In the studio, it's very understandable. You want to do as fast as possible and get the production very happy with you. But then if you're doing this in our personal work, I mean, there's no, you know, learning or anything. It's just like trying to get something out there, but without actually learning anything. So I don't see it as a good thing, you know. So standard. Actually, let's go to clay buildup, which is still my favorite brush ever. Clay buildup around here. And again, this expression is very different from the previous one, but I can get like some clues in there. So maybe like get the nose slightly more narrow around here. And I'm gonna get this deeper, because now with that different lighting, I can actually see that this is deeper down here. And how interesting that the corners here are going so low. It's going very low around here. And his eyelids are basically completely hidden almost. It's very, very cool. I'm gonna spin it around a little bit like that. And let's try to build some of this form in his neck that's so interesting. Clay buildup. We're gonna build that main one right around here. It actually goes and flares out and pulls from the sides. I'm gonna try to build that with a very strong line here. Smooth it out. And get a little bit more from the side. Actually, those are two different forms. I'm actually doing the wrong thing. This one actually connects around here, the chin, and then this one comes in parallel. And the difference between using the clay buildup and using like the regular standard brush is that if you have forms that are actually competing, right? Like some forms are basically like colliding with each other, you're gonna create that tension and then the compression when you do that. And if you're using the standard, there's no way to get that. For example, like just as an example here, if I want to build up like two different forms, let's say like the eye bags compressing against this form on the side here, right, to create the squint. See, when I'm sculpting it, it's creating a very sharp line in between those two forms. So I can keep building one and the other one, and you get that sharp pinched line right in the middle, right? Which is very important if you're building something organic. So I'm gonna build it here. You're gonna see building up that, and then that one, and you're gonna see there's a sharp line right in the middle, right? So if I switch back to the standard, let's create a copy of my standard here. So brush, clone, and then I'm just gonna eliminate this alpha and just keep it default. Oh, Jesus, alpha. So I'm gonna try to do the same thing using the standard brush here, and look what happens. So I build it, and instantly I can see it's just like there's this ball being created in there. And then this one here, it's like, it's not the same control. He actually starts like pushing out, you know, it's like in actually building the middle of it, but it doesn't have that nice fall off that actually just like builds just enough to create the crease. This one you have to actually really go to town to create any crease in there in between. So the build up is much nicer, you know, it's like to create this kind of forms. That's why I always use it. And then I go to town with like bigger forms as well. If I'm defined like zygomatic, for example, I'm gonna switch to a bigger form and I'm gonna build something like that, much more rough, right? Forehead, same thing, something more rough. this form I just built right here in the neck, right? Like I just go with a big brush, just do that. And I had a post I posted on my Facebook the other day talking about some other aspects of the digital sculpting that are very overlooked. And they are, for example, like if we're looking at the sculpture here as a technical exercise, right? We are just paying attention to the size of the brush and the intensity. So it's just like size and intensity. That's basically what we're using here. But one thing that people don't pay too much attention is that there's a lot of gesture involved. And that comes like from the same school, I guess, like from traditional art. That's basically like if you have a physical piece, you have to have like a to incorporate gesture, right? So when I start like painting the details, especially like the color painting of my skin, I posted some screenshots, by the way, about the albedo I did for Stan Winston, and I painted a lot of that during the class actually. There's a lot to do with the speed I'm actually painting things, you know, because the spray is going to behave in a different way, the color spray. Painting very slowly, you're going to get a different effect. And if you have like the movement's very fast with your hand, you're going to get a different effect. And then there's the pressure as well, of course, like the pressure sensitivity. And it also is basically like direction, pressure, and speed, right? Like those are three fundamental things I think everybody should like pay attention to, you know. It's like sometimes you just like do it without paying attention, but it's very important because you can get so much more variation. You can have like a standard brush behave like in like 10,000 different ways, you know, depending on how you're going to incorporate those parameters in there into your pipeline, instead of like just rely on the intensity and the size itself, you know. Sometimes my brushes, I make them dynamic, so they actually behave like they grow and shrink according to the pressure of the tablet. So I can show you some of that stuff later too. So it's very important, you know, it's like to actually use gesture and make things more dynamic for your sculpting. Let's incorporate some rough lines in here because I know he has some wrinkles in his neck. I don't know exactly how they look like, but just incorporating something based on the averages, right? Like looking at the older people. And so just like incorporating some stuff in there. I think it's important, you know, it's like to do the studies, of course, because sometimes you don't get the information, but you still can add it. And although it's not going to look exactly like the guy, it's going to make it believable, you know. It's like if you have the forms at least in the right spots. And basically like you fill up all the missing information with stuff that actually looks believable. Starting to look like something, but not quite. And again, I'm working with a smiley face against one that's barely smiling, so not quite that. But I can tell that this area here, around his eye bags, there's a very cool little form that's happening here. So basically, this one extends. This is another thing, like clay buildup is perfect for this kind of stuff, just to extend the form, creating a fake fold in there. And again, everything I build is very, very subtle when it comes to the secondary forms, like I said before. So I just build them up like in very thin layers, and I can actually start, you know, adding like secondary stuff like this little bag right here, the internal one. And as you get like a more reference like older people, you're gonna notice that sometimes the eyelids get a little bit more puffy. So this edge here that we normally tend to model very, very sharp sometimes. In this case here, I'm gonna make it more puffy. So I'm gonna use the inflate brush. And I'm gonna just use a very small intensity, like maybe 3. I'm just gonna make it more rounded than you expect. And then all my care is going to be put like towards this very edge in here against the eye. There is a little trick I'm going to show you guys when we get closer to, you know, it's like modeling the eyes and the eye bags around them, which is like, it makes really, gives a nice touch, you know, it's like it adds more realism to it. Probably like a lot of you guys saw it today, but this is the stuff I posted from my renders from last night. So I got those guys out. And then for the eyes, I mean, like if I get one like this, right? Everything looks very natural. But you see, like the lid itself is not like a sharp line; it's fairly rounded. And I like when it's like this because instead of expecting to have like a sharp little specular, you get a little bit more of a broad specular like that. And then that helps a lot, you know, to sell the idea that's a more realistic thing. So yeah, I posted this one on Artstation. A lot of stuff is still like pretty rough, like the peach fuzz is too exaggerated and stuff. But I mean, that was like 4 weeks of work, right? So it's not like I spent way too much time, especially with a full-time job. It's not like I spent a whole lot, but it was good, like 70 hours for sure, like all together. So I'm gonna be building up this a little bit thicker. So hopefully at the end, we're gonna have a result similar to that one, just like with a different character. And if we can get something similar, I'm gonna be very happy. So let's see, clay build up. And I hope you guys are excited to start your own models. If you already have one, if you want to post in our room in there, you know, it's like in the group on Facebook, just feel free to post anything you guys want, you know. So if you have like questions about anything that was in the class today or from yesterday, and you have like a bug or something like that, like I said, we are like mostly professionals, and I think people can chime in, you know, so I can help with their own experiences. But I'm normally hovering over there and just like checking things like you still do for the previous class, and post stuff often and try to help my my past students. Got some message from them today. I actually joked about yesterday because I was like, where did you guys go? I mean, like I was waiting for you tonight and it didn't show up. I was like, yeah, I kind of, you know, it's interesting to build a relationship. So I was missing the guys, but it is what it is. We are all online, so we you know, we are always commenting on each other's stuff anyway.
Don't worry, man. You can always create a meeting after the class. We all join.
Yeah, it's yeah, these classes are being like a revelation to me, man, because I'm having so much fun, you know. It's like just first off, there's a very like a white kind of peer pressure, you know. It's like it's not peer pressure, but it is a little pressure because you're actually exposing yourself now. You know, it's like I'm trying to create something here in front of a lot of badass artists, and then trying to make sense of things, you know, so I can make sure that I'm not making too many mistakes and stuff like that. So there's a little pressure, but overall, actually, I enjoy it. You know, I enjoy the little pressure that comes with those things. But it's always like you never know where those things are gonna go. You know, it's like I never know where my model is gonna go. If they're gonna take a turn, if at some point I'm gonna get more experimental with it and transform into something else. Like I did a little demo, and I'm planning to do this for you guys as well. Like I said, I'm gonna reveal everything in terms of like all my shaders are gonna be open, all of them. And let's see if I can find it here. It's like the Oracle. I'm gonna open all my shader networks, and at the end, the very end of the class, someone asked me to show some of my clay brushes, and I'm gonna be doing this at the end, you know, it's like as a little bonus. So this guy here, I posted online some time ago. You're gonna recognize it. So this render is here. They all done in Arnold as well. And I have my own set of brushes that I created to do this. And although I'm not giving away my brushes because I want people to work hard to get their stuff, I'm gonna be showing exactly how I built them. You know, it's like I'm gonna be showing like a three-dimensional, you know, reference image for you, so you guys can try to copy them, and then how to put together the brushes so you can get similar results. You know, I'm gonna be opening the networks for the shading and to show exactly how things are plugged. You see, like there's a little post-processing here. So this is the original render from Arnold, and this is actually the post-process version. So you know, it's like it's gonna be my pleasure to just like show that stuff because I know people are fascinated with this clay look. And it was funny because I posted online last year or the year before. I don't remember. I think this is 2 years old now. And I got comments from artists, you know, it's like saying, dude, I sculpted for 25 years and I thought this was an actual clay sculpture. So that's a nice compliment, you know. So I'm gonna be showing exactly. I did a demo, and the last class was basically just me sculpting the current model, which is Stan Winston, transforming him into a clay sculpture like that. So I could show like one by one all the brushes, which are basically like 12 or 13 brushes I use, and each one what effect they have, how they look like when I apply them to a plane, things like that. So I'm gonna be covering all that stuff. You don't need to worry because you're gonna get a lot of information out this class. So I'm excited to share with you guys. I'm actually training my replacements. Someone told me today, like, "Oh man, you're gonna stay in this industry for a long time, or are you planning to just, teach classes and stuff?" I was like, "Man, I wouldn't mind just teaching classes and teaching the next generation to take my job." But yeah, I don't know. I have no problem teaching.
That is for sure a nice way to retire.
Yeah, right. That would be awesome, man. Dude, I had this thing in my mind that was basically like, I don't know why I had this number that was like, okay, I'm gonna be very happy if I have 30 movies in my resume at some point. And then guess what? I have 30 movies in my resume right now. So it's not like it's like I'm looking forward to anything new at this point. I'm not like overly ambitious when it comes like, oh, I want to retire having an Oscar or something like that, or becoming a big ass supervisor or something like that. I'm actually pretty happy being an artist and just being able to be creative and do stuff, And when it comes to the Oscar, I mean, we got an Oscar for Rango, so I'm fine with that.
True.
Yeah.
True.
But yeah, man, I could like, I just have to get better at teaching. But it's like this is the second one, so you guys are my lab rats. And then eventually, if I get really good at this, I can see myself teaching more classes. It's like maybe doing different subjects, or maybe like teaching basic stuff in ZBrush, because there's plenty of room for that. And
I think that one class that would fill up really fast and people would be fascinated to get from you would be creatures. Creatures would be awesome.
Creatures.
All your experience, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. The thing is, like, I'm not very well known, like, at least my personal work, I don't have a lot of creature work, right? But at ILM, I do a lot of creature stuff. And actually, my title is like a lead creature modeler in there. But it's another thing that people don't know much about me, like people just watching me working on Instagram, is that most of my work ever done for ILM was hard surface work. So, like, I worked in, like, 4 out of 5 Transformer movies, and I modeled the last Bumblebee, the one in the movie. I modeled it, of course, like a steam work and everything, but all the main panels and everything I modeled. And so I did a lot of hard surface work. It's not my favorite. You don't see any hard surface work done in my personal work, but but I really yeah. Sorry.
It's something that you have to like, because hard surface, when I think about hard surface, you get like Vitaly Bulgarov, that
yes,
definitely he likes that. Okay,
yes,
it's his thing.
Yeah, or Fausto,
other
right?
than or Fausto. Yeah. Other than that, it's just we have to do it because it's work.
Exactly, it pays the bills, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But if the classes become the main thing, it's like if I paying the bills, I was like, man, I'm out of here. I would.
I know that you did the Pacific Rim robots, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's like it was funny because my first job at ILM, when I got there, I came as a creature modeler, right? Like a organic modeler. And then the first day in there, they said, like, we don't have anything in the pipe right now concerning creature stuff or character stuff. Do you do any hard surface work? And I was like, well, I never did anything like in my personal work. You're not going to find anything. But I know the theory behind it. I know how to fence the edges. I know how to use a little bit of the, the creasing and things like that. I can try. So they gave me like one of those characters, like very annoying if you remember them. The green and the twins, right? It's like those twins in the
Transformers. The Transformers one.
Yes, the second Transformers. And it was like, oh my God. So like the faces are so fucked up. And I was like, okay, fine. So I modeled one of them in a few days. And then the supervisor looked like, oh man, this looks awesome. Can you model the body? So I modeled the body for one. Actually, Kelvin was the guy who was modeling the body. So they gave the rest to me. So I finished it up. And then they gave me, oh, can you model the second twin? I was like, sure. Then they gave me Sideswipe later. And I was like, all of a sudden I was building a bunch of robots for that movie, you know, and without having any previous experience modeling robots. And then it became a trap because every time they had Transformers, they would call me to do some work. And the thing that's interesting is that, like, because it's so technical, right? Like a hard surface is so technical. A lot of guys who come in to work from different companies, they bring like this awesome arsenal of like tools they use like for the hard surface stuff. They model like machinery like nobody else, you know, it's like, it's amazing stuff. But then they get in trouble with the organic shapes. And Transformers has a lot of that. It has a lot of very organic shapes. So what normally happens with those Transformers movies, especially now that all the work is being sent overseas because of the tax breaks, right? Mm-hmm. People in London and Singapore and Canada get all the jobs that we used to get. So at least at the beginning, like years ago, they were not very experienced with this stuff. So we would send stuff over, and they would do a pass. They would do a beautiful job with mechanical stuff, but then the organic part like was missing. So they would bounce back to me, and I would do like a pass and just like fix a bunch of robots, just adding more organic feel to them, you know. And that was actually very enjoyable to do. I like that part.
I believe any task that give us some more production information would be so appreciated, because in most courses and classes you learn some stuff and some awesome stuff, but when you want to apply this in production, you would face something that you say, sorry, it wasn't supposed to be like this.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing. You know, it's like we are all under NDAs. It's not like we don't want to talk about stuff. It's that we can get fired if we talk about stuff. That's the point.
No. I don't mean production information about ILM or, but for example, how to prepare base mesh, or how to do your detail works, or
yeah, I mean, like,
because it's different, I believe.
Yes, that's the thing, you know, it's like what I'm going to be teaching you guys here is my personal approach to all this stuff. And although a lot of these techniques I use in my professional work as well, it's not like something that's adopted by everybody, you know. So for example, like using HD geometry, I'm one of the few guys who use HD geometry at ILM, you know. It's like a lot of people are too afraid to use it. And I use it since 2012, I believe. That's Transformers, not Transformers, the first Avengers. I used in those gigantic eels, the flying eels, and I modeled those ones using the HD geometry. And then from that point on, every single movie, you know, I used HD geometry. For Pacific Rim, I modeled, you know, Atashi and some other characters in there with HD geometry. So it's like, it's going to be basically my personal pipeline here. Because I mean, like, if you look at production, for example, like I'm working on some shots right now. I'm doing corrective work, right? So basically, like, I'm correcting stuff as it breaks, like the rig breaks, and then I fix during the shot. And then just to get an answer back, right? You do your fix and everything, you send it out, and then it has to go through, you know, it's like it has to be rendered, and then it has to be comped, and then there's all kinds of process and people involved, right? Just to get the result back until you do another pass, sometimes it goes like 3 days, right? And then in this personal pipeline here, it's so fast to me because I can do it in the same night. I can do like the sculpting pass, I can do a texture pass, and I can render this stuff, check if the proportions are correct, bounce back to ZBrush, do another pass, so I can have like 3 or 4 iterations every night, you know? And that's super fast, and that's not something you're gonna get in production for sure. So I'm gonna be talking like as I can in terms of like comparison with you know, production stuff, but I cannot get into too much detail. But definitely, you know, it's a much more free way to do it. I'm kind of like tired of the pipeline thing because you're so dependent of sometimes like very old school way of doing things. There's a lot of legacy in those studios. For example, like you get a studio which was actually used to use soft image back in the day, in the first projects they did. And then all of a sudden the scale for soft image was a different scale. It was not like world scale. So actually it was not the scale. It was the I think it was the camera facing, instead of like facing Z axis, it was actually facing the X axis. And then all of a sudden that it gets incorporated to the pipeline. And then you basically, like, you're in 2019 and you still use the same stuff because you're trying to keep legacy, because if one of those files is ever restored, you want to make sure that you can read them and they're going to work fine, you know? So yeah, it's like I like my pipeline better than the pipeline is in studio for sure. It's much easier to see results, much faster. But yeah, it's like we are at 11:35. I'm going to have to stop right here, but I'm going to do this, you know, it's like I'm going to keep sculpting it. And I'm going to have to save this file first so it doesn't get too big and take too long to process. So I'm going to stop right now and then wait for the video to process so I can post in about an hour and a half for you guys to have it if you want. And then after that, I'm going to create like a fake meeting and keep sculpting so I can record it.
Okay, that's awesome.
Thanks again, guys. I hope it was not, I hope it's not too confusing because I'm sometimes I get a little too excited with stuff and then I end up like eating some words and, you know, but no. All good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, buddy. Have a great night.
You too.